Now let us have a little talk with Jesus. Let us tell him all about our troubles. He will hear our faintest cry, and he will answer by and by. And you will hear a little prayer wheel turning, and you know a little fire's burning. Just a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Good morning to all of you who are out there in our virtual space. Good morning, Genesis Baptist Church. I am Youth Minister C.J. Brinson, and I am here with you today to bring forth to you the word, to share with you what God has placed in me. I'm going to ask if you would turn with me in your Bible to 2 Chronicles, 7th chapter, verses 12 through 14. 2 Chronicles, the 7th chapter, verse 12 through 14. And it reads, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a temple for sacrifices. When I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. While you have the sermon in your hearing, I want you to reflect on the sermon topic. Only God can save us now. Only God can save us now. My friends, there are only really two occasions in my life that I can remember where I honestly felt American in this country. The first being in 2008, when I felt that this country had leaned into its creed and elected the first African-American president, Barack Hussein Obama. The other was on the afternoon when the verdict of Mr. Derek Chauvin came back to us on live public TV. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Nothing made me feel more relieved than when I watched Mr. Chauvin being carried out in handcuffs to begin the process of serving his sentence. I was emotional. I was thinking that maybe America has finally come to grips with its sinful deeds. And while I was attempting to try to adjust to these new feelings of feeling American, and as black people were trying to process all of these new feelings, Ma'Khia Bryant is gunned down like a dog, trying to defend herself in her own yard, killed by police after calling the police. And I will not try to argue with you whether it is justified or whether it is not justified. But I will say this: there has to be something that is terribly wrong with a policing system that continuously puts black bodies in harm, in which black bodies bear the brunt of violence because of inadequate police policies. Little Ma'Khia's death, it shook me to the core. I began to feel like the more things change, the more they stay the same. I started to feel like that if it ain't one thing, it's another. I said to myself, Lord, how long? And the Spirit, it led me to the text this morning, 2 Chronicles 12 through 14. Particularly the focus verse, verse 14. And after I read the text, I came to the conclusion, it became clear to me, as clear as day, that only God could help us now. I believe this morning, Black people, Americans in general, and Black Americans, on Wednesday, like King Solomon, in our text this morning, we got so caught up in the celebration. We got so caught up in the celebration that we almost forgot for a moment that we as a people, we still have some deep-seated issues that need to be addressed. That we forgot that we as a nation, we have some trauma to address. And while we are constantly trying to exist in a capitalist nation that puts profit over people, while we are trying to achieve a breakthrough, while we are trying to capture one victory or celebration after another, the world has a way of reminding us that we as a people, we still have some work to do. We still have a lot of healing to do. We keep getting these reminders in the midst of perceived success, in the midst of moments of victory, in the midst of what should be a celebration. We keep getting reminders like Michael Brown and Rashida McBride. We keep getting reminders like George Floyd and Dante Wright and Andrew Brown Jr. We keep getting reminders like Ma'Khia Bryant, forcing us to remember that in times like these, only God can help us now. Solomon in the text this morning comes to this conclusion. He has finished construction in the temple. He has restored God's presence back to Israel. He has fulfilled his daddy's dream. He has gone farther in his life than his parents could have imagined. He has prayed over the temple. He has pleaded for God's blessing. Surely God is pleased with him. But yet, God comes to him in a dream. God comes to him in a dream, and God says to him in verse 12, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a temple for sacrifices. God seems to be saying to Solomon, Solomon, I have heard your prayer. I see your temple. I see all that you have been able to accomplish with your leadership. I see all that you have been able to accomplish with your hands. But at verse 13, and I'll paraphrase a bit, some pestilence is still on the way. Some famine is around the corner. Some heartaches and pains are impending. And the only way to be delivered, the only way to receive some healing, the only way to find some relief is that if my people, your people of this nation, if they are going to find some healing, they're going to have to humble themselves. They're going to have to pray. They're going to have to seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. There are some theological debates about whether God is behind pestilence or whether God is behind pandemics or whether God is behind tragedies. I tend to err on the side that God doesn't cause tragedy or pestilence or pandemics. But God is with us as we go through tragedies, pestilence, and pandemics. And here in the text this morning, as we are experiencing tragedy as a nation, God gives us a roadmap. God gives us some instruction about how we are to deal and to move through tragedy. We deal and move through tragedy because we have to humble ourselves. We have to pray. We have to seek God's face. We have to turn from our wicked ways. Then God can heal the land. You see, I believe Solomon got a little prideful. Solomon got caught up in building buildings. He was trying to fulfill his destiny. He was trying to make good on his father's dream. And God comes to him in his sleep. This temple is nice. I'm glad that the Ark of the Covenant is here. In fact, Solomon, I will even reside here. And what you have accomplished here is grounds for celebration. But please don't forget that while you are celebrating, please don't forget that while you are experiencing a moment that seems to be successful, please don't forget that you have to also develop the people. Please don't forget that the institution needs some standards for people to live by. Don't be so caught up in buildings that you forget to train my people in the ways of God. My friends, this morning, I'm here to tell you we have lost our way. We are confused about God's way. Our nation, and even at times our community, has forgotten the blessings of humility. Instead of humbleness, we have pride. The nation thinks that it is better than other nations. Its hope is in industries and markets. Success is measured by material acquisition. We stand in awe of buildings and prestigious institutions. We value the size of one's bank account, the size of one's home, the style of one's car. We are consumed with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter lifestyles. We live vicariously through people, trying to figure out what trips they are on, trying to figure out what restaurants are they visiting, trying to figure out what hotels are they staying in. And the human condition is more dire than it's ever been before. Only God can help us now. Our nation is quick to celebrate symbolic victories. Stock market numbers are higher than they've ever been. Unemployment rates are stabilized. Our president is talking about billions in infrastructure spending. And in the same breath, wealth inequality is wider than it's ever been. The average job doesn't pay a living wage. A school teacher has to work 2 and 3 jobs just to not have to live on government assistance. And with all of this spending, it seems as if this thing called trickle-down economics never trickles down. Only God can help us now. The dire straits of the human condition are not just in the world, but they have also crept into the church. The preachers have confused their roles as servants of God with being self-help gurus. We have traded in worship for entertainment, profit over people, status over inclusion, buildings over community, cliques and social clubs instead of being a place for healing, rest, and relief. Only God can help us now. Our moral decay has also even crept into our homes and our communities. Mommies and daddies are so concerned with images and taking the perfect picture. Parents are wanting to make sure that their children have more than they've ever had. iPads, TVs, cell phones, Xbox, PlayStation, LeBrons, Vans, Jordans, and Currys. And if you are like my family, then your children even have a puppy. All of this at the expense of them not being properly trained. The children today know very little about who God is. They know very little about who Jesus is. They know very little about respect. They know very little about how to resolve conflict. They have constantly been introduced to images that devalue black bodies, and in turn they are in war with each other, devaluing their very own black bodies. So much so through worldly eyes, it seems as if we have much to celebrate. But when we see things through the Spirit, when we pay attention to the reminders that interrupt our celebration, we pay attention to the reminders that interrupt our moments of victory, when we pay attention to the reminders that sometimes interrupt celebrations, we see, like Solomon, we are in a condition where God can only save us now. I heard the Spirit say to me, CJ, I see the buildings. I see the technological advances. I see the development of downtowns all across America. I see that Bitcoin is doing well and Dogecoin is about to explode. I see sacrifices. I see the pain and tears. I see the marching. I see policy changes. Keep doing what you're doing. But Ma'Khia Bryant's issues that surround Ma'Khia Bryant, those are not solved with just marching and policy. Those are values issues. That is a God thing. I heard the Spirit, and the Spirit said clear to me, tell the people that they are going to have to humble themselves. They're going to have to pray. They're going to have to seek God's face. They're going to have to turn from their wicked ways. Tell the people they're going to have to humble themselves. As a nation and as a people, we have seemed to become so arrogant that we think so highly of ourselves. We have to stop thinking that we are more important than others. We have to stop thinking that our lives matter more than other lives. We have to learn how to respect all human beings. We have to understand that no life has more value than another. We must continue to fight this notion that all lives matter until black and brown lives matter. We have to learn to be humble. And after we've learned how to be humble, Scripture says that we need to pray. Prayer is defined as a solemn request for help or expression of thanks addressed to God or an object of worship. Prayer, the act of talking to or tapping into something that is higher than yourselves. See, what I found out is that the issue is that some of us, we rely on ourselves too much. We think that we are doing life by ourselves. We rely on everything but God. We get stressed and we get depressed and we get anxiety and everything that we are going through, we seem to turn to everything else but turn to God during those situations. We will confide in our friends. We'll have us a little drink. Some of us may even smoke a little bit. Some of us may go to a massage parlor. Some of us may cuss and fuss and even fight if we have to. But you better learn, like the old folks used to say, that can't nobody do me like Jesus. Can't nobody do me like the Lord. Can't nobody do me like Jesus, because Jesus is my friend. Can't nobody, there is nothing, there is none who can help you like Jesus. The old folks used to say, now let us have a little talk with Jesus. Let us tell him all about our troubles. He will hear our faintest cry. He will answer by and by. And you hear a little prayer wheel turning and you know a little fire's burning. Let us have a little talk with Jesus. Makes it right. You better learn how to pray. You better learn how to pray if you are interested in healing our nation. And I hear someone saying, but youth minister, I've been praying. Well, I'm here to tell you, pray some more. Reverend Claudette Copeland says, in fact, you've got to push, P-U-S-H. You've got to push. You've got to pray until something happens. You have to push until a breakthrough happens. You have to push until you're healed. You have to push until you gain your mental clarity. P-U-S-H. Push. Because we are living in a time where only God can help us now. And after you have prayed and after you have pushed, you have to seek God's face. Young people, you have to spend some time with God. Young people, you have to spend some time with Jesus. You have to find out what God likes. You have to find out what God desires. You have to find out what pleases God. Don't just come to God like a genie, trying to gain access to God only when you are in need of something. Remember that this experience that you are supposed to be having with God is supposed to be predicated on a relationship. I want to talk about relationships because some of you young folk, you think that you are dating. You think that you are in love. You think that you are head over heels for a person that you like. You spend time wondering what type of music that they like. You spend time wondering what they like to eat. You spend time even trying to figure out what they smell like, or what should I say, or what shouldn't I say. All for someone who may be with you today and gone tomorrow. You better apply some of those love actions in your relationship with God. Seek God's face. Learn God's way. Align with God's will. Because God has a will and God has a way that brings healing to the nations, that brings healing to your community, that brings healing to your family. I always believe that if some folks had a better relationship with God, that they would know how to treat other people better. But I'm not going to stay on that today. I'm going to move on. Because after you have sought God's face, I want you to turn from your wicked ways. I want you to turn from your wicked ways. It's time for our nation to turn from our wicked ways. It's time for our church to turn from our wicked ways. It's time for our spouses to turn from their wicked ways. It's time for our children to turn from their wicked ways. It's time for us to turn from our wicked ways, both individually and collectively. We have to stop doing things that we know without a shadow of a doubt is displeasing to God. And I don't even have to go through deeply what we need to turn away from. Because you and God knows what wickedness in your life. I and God know what wickedness in my life that I have to turn away from. You know if you are a liar. You know if you are a cheater. You know that if you are a deceiver, a gossiper, a backbiter, a manipulator. You know if you are violent. You know if you are a womanizer. You know if you are a traitor. You know that if you are a user and abuser, or even a sellout, selling out the whole community just so you can get ahead. You know who you are. Turn from your wicked ways. Turn from your wicked ways so that God can heal this nation, Turn from your wicked ways so that God can heal this land. Turn from your wicked ways so God can heal our pain. Turn from your wicked ways so God can address our trauma, so that God can continue to protect the innocent, the widows, and those of us who are poor, so that God can continue to make provision for the sick. Turn from your wicked ways. Turn from your wicked ways so that God can address wealth inequality, gender inequality, racism, capitalism, militarism, all isms that hinder us from being able to represent God's kingdom or God's kingdom or God's beloved community, or as I like to call it, the society of liberation. Turn from your wicked ways so that God can bring healing in your home, so that God can bring healing on your job, so that God can bring healing in your marriage, your church, your government. God can bring healing to your finances, to your children, to your family, and even to your friends. Turn from your wicked ways so that God can heal broken systems, so that God can heal corrupt leaders, so that God can heal corrupt police practices. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land. 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 I will heal this nation. I will heal their community. I will heal their families. I will heal all that is in need of healing. Only God can help us.